evening. I'd like to call the Special Services Committee meeting to order at 6:03. First item on our agenda is approval of January 19th, 2023 Special Services minutes.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 in our backup is our enrollment update.
Yep, so 3,879. If you compare it to the numbers on the, the back side, it's pretty consistent. The highest it ever goes is, 3,900 and some, and doesn't seem to dip below 3,800 and some.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding enrollment? Okay, next item is a bus update, also in our backup. Ms. Hebert.
Okay, so we, since our last meeting, there haven't been any changes in the bus routes. And you can see the number of the ridership numbers for the high school and middle school by the route, AM, PM, and the month, and then elementary down at the bottom.
I just have a question. Is we had to collapse due to driver shortage, 2 routes to 1. Is
Yeah.
that working okay? The numbers look okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they look good. Alright. Any questions or comments with the bus data? Alright, next item is our fiscal year 2024 budget review. So we have our special services tab. We want to open up to special services.
Do you want me to do it about everything else? I can do it now.
Do we want to go line by line? Mr. Pappas?
Well, I have a suggestion for an addition, but if you want to go line by line, that's fine too.
Is there anything?
I just have a question on
That stands
one
out,
line. There was a 12.4% increase in student transportation. Was that part of the contract?
We haven't had an increase in transportation because we were locked in for 3 years, and so the 3-year term is up. And now due to
Planning for it.
gas prices, basically, so.
When is that contract, is it up before the new fiscal year?
It'll start in September, would be the new bus
So we'll be
company,
getting
first
contract.
student, in STA.
Thank you.
So that was the price.
Mr. Down?
So, we just went over bus data with us losing a bus and having to put more kids on one bus. Does that change what we pay for?
We don't pay for that, and sometimes in the contract, they'll put in for bus monitors, and so if we don't have bus monitors, that reduces the price. So when we lock in, we get that fuel cost for those years.
Okay.
And we haven't had really any fuel cost increases because we were locked in, and the number could decrease.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Kamari?
So we have transportation for athletics or after-school activities and whatnot, whether it be the band trips or anything. I know the past couple of years we've been having issues with getting buses available. Seems to have been a little bit better this year. I don't think too many teams are driving themselves anywhere. Is that, do we pay per trip on those, or I know we've got a line item budgeted for athletics, but
I believe it's per trip.
is per trip we get a
I can double check, but that's what I believe.
okay. So if they're not if a bus is not available for that team,
They can't charge us.
okay, all right, it's not a flat fee. But, thank you.
Anything else under the special services budget? Mr. Pappas?
As many of you know, my quite involved with the band, and we've kicked around the idea of new uniforms for a number of years. And do you have?
What I have is the suggestions that came from Ron, and this is for his budget for music, and that includes fixing of instruments. So that's one increase that's proposed. Hi.
Mrs. Stokes?
I mean, I'm all in favor of increasing it, but have we talked to anybody else that would like to have it increased, not just band and music? I think if we're gonna allow them to have some kind of increase, we should just make sure that we're equitable across the board. So, I mean, I would assume this would fall under athletics as well for this budget, so special ed, you know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna look at that, which I think we 100% should, I think we also need to make sure that everybody else has a chance to provide an increase in what they would purchase it as well, so that this board can make that decision.
And they have, so like if you see the numbers that have increased on your green sheet, that's because somebody submitted that prior to the budget being completed. And now these numbers are that you all can decide if you would like to add it to the budget that's already been presented.
So,
This would be in addition.
so for example, like the athletic department asked to increase the budget by more than just what we normally increase?
Whatever they asked for was what was put in. If they didn't ask for it, it wasn't put in.
Yeah, Mr. Graham.
So kind of on top of what Ms. Stokes is saying, because I know last year, towards the end of last year, I brought up that the people involved in the wrestling team had talked about the wrestling mats and the shape of the wrestling mats, and the wrestling team actually is doing very well right now. I would like us to maybe look at helping them out as well. If we're gonna help out the band, I wanna make sure we're looking at athletics as well.
Yep, so you can propose to do that. I have the information on the mats too, if you'd like to talk about it.
Okay.
Do we want to start with the music one first, then we can discuss mats, or?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyer?
So on all these items, typically I would just say kick it back to district to formulate what they recommend, a package recommendation versus item by item. So that way it's easier, because if you guys work with the different department heads and go, all right, instead of this, maybe addition, or we want all of it, then it comes to one community activity.
And that's
So
what
you're
this
doing?
is.
Okay, cool, then, perfect.
The
That will
the
eventually.
music supplies does not include new band uniforms.
Okay, so he did not recommend new band uniforms at all?
He didn't put it in that request.
Mr. Pappas?
Did he submit a separate request for that at all?
He sent an email, and said that he had a rough idea of what the price would be, but due to the price, that would have to go out to bid. So if the like, you could put it in if you'd like, and then we would have to go out to bid.
Mr. Pappas?
I brought it up because I knew that he submitted a proposal for instruments. They have never had anything in the budget for replacement of instruments or fixing of instruments. They've never had it. And when I talked to the teachers on a trip to a parade, I asked them about that, and because my own daughter was sort of I'll call it a victim of a poor shape instrument. She was given a bass clarinet that was eons old and expected to play it, and then it would break down, and then it would take 2 weeks to fix it. And she'd sit in the band room watching everyone play. She couldn't play because it wasn't working. Then they'd get it fixed, and then it would break again, and she couldn't play. So we ended up having to buy a $4,000 instrument so she could play an instrument. And that's just one example, and I know that's probably an extreme example, but I know that if there's money in the budget to fix instruments, maybe get them improved, and this is K to 12, so it's not just the high school. This is elementary band, middle school band, and high school band.
And that was the number he submitted.
So I think it's reasonable to put some amount, I mean, ideally, I think, having gone years, I mean, I've been on the board now like almost 10, 11 years, and I've never seen a dollar amount for the music program like this, for repair and replacement. So I think it's time, and when you look at other Division I schools, like we mention sports all the time, about having facilities and whatnot that match a Division I school, like a weight room, like our fields, and what have you. I think when you see the shape of the instruments that they are using, they are very old, and they are constantly fundraising to make the basic repairs. And sometimes the students suffer because they don't have the instruments that they need. So I think it's time that we put an investment in the music program, seeing that there's a significant number of students that are involved in the music program, K to 12.
So I would agree, I would like to stick with the proposed increase put forth by the chair of the department head. And then as far as the band uniforms, I would just wait until we have a similar proposal from the music department.
Okay. He looked at it, it's probably gonna be $120,000 for over 200 uniforms for full repair, or, purchase. So that's basically what the cost is, that's what was shared, and again, if it was proposed or put in, that would need to go out to bid.
And maybe, I don't know if it would be helpful if he came to a committee meeting to present that, so we could ask questions about it down the road. Right now, I would stick with what the current proposed increase is. Mr. Boyer?
Yeah, I think all department heads know the process at this point, so if he wants to put in band uniforms, he has the process he would have to go through. He's recommending this, all right, cool.
Yeah. Mr. Pappas?
Like you were saying, I think it's probably a good idea to have them come in and at least present, because I know the shape of the current uniforms is not good. Like they're being held together with safety pins, most of them. They may look good from a distance or when you see them march by on Main Street, but most of them are being held together by the skin of their teeth here. And they are over 20 years old. So whereas we constantly replace a lot of athletic uniforms, these are not replaced on a regular basis. So this is something that was last done, if I remember correctly, in 2001.
Boosters does pay for a lot of the athletic uniforms, I just want to put that out there. I'm not really sure how much we pay for athletic uniforms, I'm assuming you could probably find that out. I just want to make sure if we're saying we pay for that we actually do. I agree, I think for somebody to say they want something in a budget, I think, our librarian had to ask for books, she had to follow a process. If our athletic department wants something, he has to follow a process. So I understand that you're a parent in the band, and I think that's great. But he should also have to follow a process, and I think that. You disagree?
I said I don't disagree.
Oh, all right, I just want to make sure so, as much as I agree with what you're saying, I think that there's that fine line between he should come in and recommend that stuff, and, Mr. Downs, commented about the mats, and we kind of said the same thing to him, is, he has to come in and kind of do that. And I just want to make sure that, we're all parents of kids, but we also have to make sure there's a process. And as much as I understand where you're coming from and it's affiliates with your daughter, I think that process should be, he comes in, he brings it forward, and he follows the same process that every other staff member in our district should do.
I can ask him to come in March.
That'd be great, so that way if we have specific questions, like will they wear them
Could we
during
get
the
the
shows?
athletic director to also come in and talk about the mats and whatever else
Well,
he might?
I have some information on that.
Or anything that he might want to bring, just to make sure we're.
They're all welcome to, and they know that.
Okay. But we're gonna reach out to him, but he knew as well, right?
He sent me an email
Okay.
with this amount of an increase, and then a second paragraph of just what it would cost,
Okay.
just so people have an idea.
Yeah.
I don't think he just wanted to put it in there because it's a significant amount of money that needs to go out to bid.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
I know in the past, some of the board members have talked about using year-end surplus for uniforms, and that's something that isn't possible because having talked to the teachers about that, band uniforms take about 6 to 8 months to build, to make, to deliver. There's a long process where the companies come in, they will fit each student, get a specific number of this size and this size and this size, and it takes a very long time to get them in. So if we were to have a budget surplus and we know we have the money in, say, April, there's not enough time to do that. So it is something that would have to be budgeted long-term. And I don't have a problem with that. I'd like to see them come in and answer questions,
Yeah.
at least so we are aware of
Yeah,
the intricacies of band uniforms.
right,
Even though I know a little bit, I don't know everything,
yeah.
and I think he would.
Yeah, like I'd like to know, is it only for parades or is it for also their competitions too?
We couldn't pay ahead of time and order them and then have them, because
They have to be delivered by June 30th.
by the time they come in. Okay,
If
because the
you use
surplus would have been
surplus
great if
money.
we had the surplus.
Yeah,
Mr.
Uh,
Johnson.
yeah, Mr. Downs.
Well, that was my question as well, like, when are they gonna wear them? Because I haven't seen them wear their current uniforms, and they were wearing some, I don't even know what you wanna call what they were wearing during, like, when I would see them at the football games. I would like to see them wearing their uniform. If we're gonna spend the money on uniforms, sorry, but I wasn't a fan of what they were wearing this past fall.
That's why it's helpful to have him come in so we can ask him that
Right.
question and have guidance, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that that was because the uniforms are in such fragile shape, they didn't want to use them over and over and over, and then have them all disintegrate on the kids and then have nothing for parades. So they're kind of reserving the shape that they're in for the parades that they're using, or that they're in.
Do you agree, Mr. Kamiri?
So I've got a question that, in the budget book, under on page 1, special services budget, initial budget. Under the 2023 spent and encumbered as of 1/18, we're line 57,3,500.
Yeah.
$73,839, and we had budgeted $24,000. I'm just curious as to what we spent to put us that far over what we budgeted.
What line?
So if you go to athletics
573500.
1420, go down to the second to last 53.
Under replacement equipment.
Yeah.
So we spent this year 73,000.
Was that the weight room?
We did have a surplus at the end of last year.
I was not part of that. I would have to ask.
Just research that.
Yeah,
That would come back.
I wasn't part of that.
I mean, obviously, we're not budgeting that much, but it should be.
Yeah,
budgeted
yeah,
more,
we're
right?
3 times, almost 3 times what we budgeted for, so just curious as to what that.
Uniforms, did football get uniforms?
I know lacrosse got or was supposed to get new shirts last year, I think, I don't know, yeah, but still, it's,
So procedurally, what are we doing here? Do we just table this until the district, is this the final district recommendation for this area? Or is this just the
This
administrator's?
is a recommendation, so these are suggested additions to the budget,
Okay.
and this committee gets to decide if they
Okay.
want to add them. The music department is asking for a proposed increase. That's what we're
But
talking
then you have
about.
those other lines below it, obviously, there's.
And we haven't
increases.
discussed those yet.
Okay.
Mr. Pappas?
So correct me if I'm wrong, the top 3, elementary, ALA, then there's the music, and then there's the math, that's all the instruction committee. So special services is the very last one, the special education transportation. So this committee is only looking at line 551900.
Correct. And that was explained to us last month by Ms. Reinhardt. The justification for the increase because of the bid, and it was more. Mr. Boulder,
So I'd make a recommendation that we include the recommended increase for line 551900 in the proposed budget.
is there a second?
Second.
That's a motion, not a recommendation, sorry.
Yeah, and to send to finance?
Well, once it goes in here, we can make the final adoption to go to finance.
Okay.
So-
And there's a second, Mr.
Yeah.
Pappas? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And so I brought up that amount now because the uniforms were brought up. You had mentioned the mats. So the situation with the mats was, again, they take time to order and come in. So the parents went ahead and put in an order and ordered the mats. They took their money and they put the deposit down on it. The remaining balance right now is $7,196.40.
How much did you say that again?
$7,196.40 is a balance that's due on replacing the wrestling mats. That was not ordered by Mr. Hebert.
Mr. Boyer?
All right, so let me just make sure I fully understand this. Our athletic director didn't do anything.
He didn't put in the order.
Okay, the parents of the student's parents went out, did their bid, and is there an expectation the district's picking up this bill? Are they asking, where are we right now? Because typically, if this is gonna be a contract by the school department, we have a process to go through, and the dollar amount, we would see bids, or we make an exception on if we couldn't find enough bids, or whatever it is. So I'm struggling here because we have a fiscal responsibility to manage taxpayers' dollars, but yet I feel like my hand's forced that parents went out and did this, and now what's next? I mean, just using an example, but what's to stop Mr. Pappas to go get $120,000 and if you have this credit limit, the 50%. We should go out to dinner first, but like go out and pay half of it, and then we're like, I guess we're paying 60, like there's a procedural process,
I
right?
think what it comes down
What do we
to is similar to the timing. So in order to get mats and get things made, it takes a considerable amount of time. And I think that due to the way that the budget process is, that would not have happened. And so they are not asking us to pay it, but it's been brought up. And so I investigated, found the information, and I'm simply presenting it to you. You could make a motion to pay it or not. Either way, I'm just showing you what the information is and telling you what the story is. Yep.
Mrs. Stokes?
So somebody, not the district, paid half of the mats already?
The parents are committed to it. They wanted the mats. They knew it was gonna be a very long time to make them. They went ahead and did it.
Okay, so technically, somebody has donated half of them. If we think about it the other way around, I know, I just want to be clear. I get what you're saying and I agree.
There's someone's job that should have done that, is my point.
I agree, but it was brought to the board and the board said that they would have to discuss it. And so as a parent, maybe they're like, it's a safety issue.
Sorry, no, keep going.
Okay,
No,
so
sure,
it was brought up. It was brought up by Shane and it was discussed and it would have to be put in the budget and all that. So it was discussed. So, I mean, if we really think about it, yes, they went the wrong way. But if we're gonna get mats now for 7,000 instead of 13,000, I mean, it's a safety, it was brought up as like a potential safety hazard. I get what you're saying, but I also think if we can now, I mean, we're not gonna get mats for 7,000 less than that price. That, you know what I mean? These parents wanted their kids to be safe. I don't know that I get what you're saying, but I also think there's another upside to that as well.
Mr. Downs?
So just like what Ms. Stokes said, like there was a safety concern, if one of your kids are wrestling on those mats, and the condition that I was told, I never got to see them, but I was told those mats, and those were 30-plus-year-old mats. I don't blame the parents for doing this, they wanted their kids being safe doing a physical sport. So I think this is something the board should think about doing, is paying the rest of the balance, or whether the parents went on it maybe the wrong way. I think the board still should think about finding $7,000 in the budget to finish paying these off.
Are you making a motion?
No, I just think it's up for discussion.
So my concern is, we did as a committee, we brought it to our committee's attention, and we sent it back to the athletic director to come back to us with an updated proposal, what have you. We've seen the list of financial items from different departments. We haven't heard from the athletic director or the building principal as to a request about this, to pay for this.
And I think that was due to the fact that this was ordered before the budget. If you were going to say you were going to pay for it, it could come out of a supply line that has a balance. So say, for example, if the high school principal's balance is $12,000, you as a board can make a motion to take this money out of that.
Can you say that one more time?
What, do you want me to scroll up?
Yeah,
Christine, you're talking about this year, like not the budget, this is current budget.
This is current, right.
We're talking, this could be, we could instruct that this is gonna be coming out of somebody's budget they
Right.
currently have right now.
Right now.
And they gotta figure out how they're gonna live the rest of the year.
Yeah, from that principal.
So, but they may have planned something else.
They,
This is what they're forcing our hand.
this is ordered on.
No, what we're saying is, we could say, the high school principal, you're gonna use your money sitting there in a balance because you did not do your job. And that's where my philosophical problem is.
I have an issue making the building principal, who might have that earmarked for something else, that we don't know about, to chastise, you know what I mean? I really think, where I feel the disconnect is I feel as though I wish the athletic director, we had asked that the athletic director come to the board and explain this process. I love our athletic director, I'm sure there was a reason why he's not here, we don't know. I wish that we had been told, hey, this was still up there, but the parents feel it's important, they're willing to put 50% down, would the board consider it? Because that's something that we could pay for if we have extra money at the end of the year. And I don't want a parent thinking, we paid for it all, those are our mats. That also gets a little sketchy. But it doesn't sound to me, I feel like if we're gonna invite, maybe we ask our athletic director to come and say, you know, why weren't we? It would have been nice to say, hey, the parents put 50% down. If possible, if you have money at the end of the year, would you be willing to donate it? If not, the parents are. I don't want to take money away from, that's earmarked for something different, because we don't know what we could be taking away from it. I don't think that's a smart idea, because we're upset. Because I'm equally, why weren't we told?
So the only thing that I'll say is that because it was ordered, it won't go into next year's budget. Because we don't. The way our budget process works, which you just discussed.
But if we had extra money at the end of the year.
Yes, you could pay for this with the current budget that we have. But
Without
this,
affecting the principals.
they would have to find the money.
Have to have the
It's gotta
principal
come from somewhere.
We have to pay for it with this year's budget.
That's what I'm trying
Yeah,
to say.
I agree.
We have to pay for it. If you were going to pay, you don't have to do anything.
Right. If we are choosing to pay, it has to be out of the current budget we're in. versus
they would go
more
back.
Working on,
The principal and the athletic director would go back
so.
and they would look to see if there were funds.
And that's why I asked you to scroll up, I'm looking at the date these were ordered, and when we had these conversations back, this was ordered January 11th.
We probably had a conversation.
And the
about
conversation was way
We had
back
it
in
in
the
October.
fall,
Mhm.
It was October.
and we've had no input since.
Correct.
So that's,
Well, this fuels my fire.
But
I'm not here to fuel fire.
do
I'm
we
just here to
blame the
play.
principal, or do you know what I mean? Like, we have an athletic budget. And again, I don't wanna take away from the athletic budget if it's gonna, you know, what are we taking from Peter to pay Paul? So we don't have any extra lines that we're like, hey, we're able to save, I mean, sometimes we send like a lot of money back to the city. We can't find it somewhere else where it's not gonna affect somebody else's budget.
Well, I think whatever money you take affects the budget. It's just a matter of where it comes from. And so, again, the situation is that I don't know if there's anybody to blame. I think that these mats take an extended amount of time to make and to ship. The parents knew that this budget process would take this long and would go into the next year out, and they made the decision to purchase these. I'm just bringing you this number because you've asked me about it, and this is the number that you could pay this year, and they would have to find the money from a line item.
Mr. Pappas?
I'm a bit frustrated in that a lot of people seem to have dropped the ball here. And I think it would, because it's involving student safety on the mats and what have you, I think there is some obligation of us to pay for it. And one thing I would like to suggest is maybe see if we can get normally I would ask the business administrator, but maybe the superintendent to find the money, the balance somewhere, and come back to us with. And so I think we should agree to pay for it and have the superintendent find, or come to us with a recommendation of where that money should come from.
Okay, Mr. Downs?
I agree with Ms. Pappas, but I also still think we need answers on why this happened and why we weren't, so I think.
That's what I
But I
told
still-
you.
yeah.
The parents chose to
No,
do this.
what I'm saying like, having the athletic director come here and explain to us
Yeah.
what happened, that's.
I can
think-
certainly
I
ask
think the
Kevin to
board
come,
just-
but he's gonna tell you the same exact thing. The budget process is that it would need to wait and go in this year's budget. It would take time to get it made. Sometimes it takes 10 months or longer to get them printed. That group didn't want to wait another year with those old mats. They chose to do this, and they're not personally asking us to pay for it. They're still gonna have to pay for it if that's the situation. So it was a decision that was made by that group.
Now, did we know this was transpiring? Like, did we know the parents were doing this? Or was this kind of like,
I
were we blindsided?
can ask Kevin if he specifically knew before the purchase was put in, but I think that the purchase was going to be put in regardless.
And this wasn't fundraised, they didn't fundraise for this, just parents came up with this amount of money to,
That's
because I know
what-
we talked about fundraising, and you gotta do, each team has to do their part in fundraising as well, so I'm curious if any of this was fundraising.
They paid for it.
And does this, and the other thing is, these parents gonna eventually donate this, or are they gonna say, well, those are my mats, and when
Yep.
my kid's out of school, I want those, that's the other thing, there's
Yeah.
other questions that we do have.
Yeah.
Mr. Bowler?
So, I mean, I think that Ms. Pappas is on the right path in terms of, if we have surplus funds this year, this would be easier to then determine this, probably this committee next meeting.
Yep.
Because my issue is, and I'm not gonna ask now for formal review of the athletic director's performance and his management of his funds and budgeting skills. And I'd like to have a report non-public at the next meeting.
Sarah.
Okay, Mrs.
Well,
Stokes?
but before we think that it's our staff, maybe he didn't know. Like, that's
That's what the
why,
review will tell us.
right, but I'm saying, like, that's why Shane said he needs to come, because I think he's gonna clarify a lot of that. So I think hearing it from somebody else is not the way to go about. So before we get mad, and I get that somebody may have ordered it, not even told, and said, hey, surprise, Kevin, we got mats coming your way. We don't know, so before we just
And that's what the
assume, right.
formal review would be.
I just wanna make sure we don't start getting heated, because if somebody's gonna buy mats and say, here, we bought you mats because our kids' safety is an issue, great for Kevin to have great parents that are gonna do it. I don't wanna just assume that he, the athletic director, did anything wrong.
And I just want to be clear, Kevin didn't ask us to pay for it.
Correct.
The parents haven't asked us to pay for it.
Correct.
I've been on this committee since September. It was brought up at committee. I've got the information for you, the same way that I've been sitting here and you've been asking about band uniforms, and I've brought the information to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I just have a concern that it sets a precedent that I don't think we want to have happen. That every time a special group has a need that they think is immediate and we're not reacting fast enough, or we're trying to balance our academics with our extracurriculars, which is never easy. I would hate to think that this would give other groups the idea, we'll just go buy it and get part of it paid for, and then they'll have to. That concerns me, that a group thinks they can, because I feel obligated to have safety mats, and who wants to wrestle on a 30-year-old mat? That sounds disgusting. But I also want books for the library and paper for the kids to write on.
guess my concern is I don't have enough information. I know that these mats are also used in PE classes. Are they going to allow the use of these mats in PE classes? Nobody's here to answer that question. Nobody's here asking for us to pay this. So until, and this is just my opinion, until someone comes forward, whether it be the parents or our athletic director or the building principal, and makes a request for us to pay the other half, I feel like there's no action. That's where I stand. Mr. Boyer.
Is it next month we might have an idea on our surplus funds?
April, I wanna say, I think it is. I think it's April.
Yeah, so care about their safety, care about they have the equipment. I think we all agree there's a process. But we gotta see what we have.
So,
What's our balance to see what we can do and what other projects do we want to fund? And some answers.
So I don't know if it's, but can we like table this
Yeah.
and maybe talk to the athletic director, have him come and answer some questions?
well, that's my question. What are you asking of me at this time?
I think the board would like some questions from the.
Would you like them to come to this committee meeting or at a full board meeting?
No, I think the committee.
The committee
it's at the
meeting,
committee
okay.
level right now.
For
If he could
March.
develop his timeline of chain of events, that will answer probably 90% of the
Yep.
questions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, so give him a heads up of,
Like,
The
develop your
questions, and then
timeline,
he
please
can come.
present what happened, the why, so I can breathe. And
Just have him watch the tape.
you still have your paramedic
Yeah.
license, because I'm gonna need you on that.
send him the video.
Certified CPR.
All right, so we'll invite him to our March.
I'll ask him to come to the meeting to discuss the timeline of events, but that was the information that I have on the current.
Thank you.
Which, to be clear, we get, like, we appreciate the information, it's just difficult when it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, we have questions for you, it's not fair to ask you, those are questions that if we have more, it's only fair to ask Kevin. We have amazing parents in our district, somebody basically paid $6,000 for mats, I appreciate it. Unfortunately, there was a process that just wasn't followed, so we
Yep.
need to find that out. And Kevin, I'm sure, he did nothing wrong, and he's gonna come through, and he's gonna clarify it, and we're gonna have the answers that we need.
So is that a motion table?
Yeah, just table it.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Mr. Pappas.
I was just gonna say, it wasn't even on the agenda,
Oh,
so.
No, it
That's
wasn't.
why I wasn't sure if it needed to be tabled, but it's.
well, it's tabled
It's
now.
tabled now.
We can just add an item to next month.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not even a budget.
And again, I think that's probably just why we have to be careful about things that we are bringing up in the meetings. So in the meetings, I'm being asked about band uniforms and mats that aren't in the budget, and I'm going back and getting you the information and bringing it. I'm going to Ron and I'm going to Kevin and saying, at the committee meeting, this was asked of me. And then they're giving me the information that you asked for. So that's kind of how that played out.
And maybe parents will go buy band uniforms.
You're gonna put a $6,000.
No, they're only gonna buy half of it.
Listen, $60,000, I'll take it.
That's high $100.
$200
Is there gonna be any effect to this year's budget then, based off of what we just discussed?
The special services, it's special education
Which we
transportation.
just motioned to add that.
And
but
that's
there's
it
no
for
other
this?
items for
Nope,
this.
the other ones are for instruction.
So I make a motion that we send our budget with that addition to finance committee for full vote.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Yeah. Mrs.
How does that
Stokes?
affect the line? Does it put us over the tax cap? All right, just wanna make sure.
We're below tax cap at 1.4, add 252, so you're at 1.15 approximately.
Sure.
Under, this, under.
Under.
that's what I was-
Or a million.
I feel like that 3 minutes I was gone, you guys must have had a lot of discussion.
That was never
You
done.
guys all had that
That was
number
in
like
last,
that.
that was
That
in
was in
finance
last
committee.
Yeah. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, so next item is 5-year plan, which will meet next Monday. And item 6 is two Mondays.
Next week is vacation.
That's right, 2 Mondays. Next item is public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the Special Services Committee? Please state your name
My name is Akia Mahoney. I'm a mom of 3 in the district, 2 is IEPs and special education. Last week I spoke out at the full board meeting and I brought up the concern of, I made the comment that why do they guard my son's para like she's the president of the United States every time I come around. I don't know who heard me, but I would like to shout out whoever it was because this week, all of a sudden, the para is allowed to come out, just her with my son, at both pickup and drop off. And that has been a tremendous game changer for my son. He is transitioning so much better. He's not having the freakouts. He's not refusing to go. He's coming out to the car all smiles. He's putting down the window to wave goodbye to her, something he has not done in the last 2 months that I've been driving him. So I appreciate whoever made that happen. The next are a few issues that I guess I'm just gonna kind of list them off, and I would urge that all of you maybe look into this and definitely probably brush up on the parental safeguards and procedural rights for special ed. Why are there some of the Title I schools that are so shorthanded for paraprofessionals using these Title I funds on the smart boards? Instead of using the funds to hire more paras. I attended a Title I meeting at Chamberlain Street School, and on the form that they handed all of us parents, they listed that that was one of the several different things that those funds could be used for. I know for certain, one of our elementary schools that's a Title I school is very, very hard up for paraprofessionals. So I think that's something to look into. I'd also like to know why there's no parent input on that, like there's supposed to be, as far as Title I schools are concerned. The next one, why do we have parents being denied to add transportation into the IEP? By that I mean like the provider bus. Also, we have a lot of parents that have come to me telling me that they're also facing the same issues for transportation for their out-of-district placement student. Again, I'm going to suggest very strongly that you check the parental safeguards and procedural rights that are handed to every parent at the beginning of every special IEP meeting, because it's outlined very, very well that it's supposed to follow suit when there's an out-of-district placement. It's supposed to follow with the transportation included. The next one, why are para supports being removed from IEPs, yet our district is meeting para hours? Why are parental concerns regarding the provider buses and or their drivers dismissed almost immediately? We've got some severe issues that both my son and another student on his bus faced. I basically was told we can't switch the driver, nothing's gonna come, you don't have proof, you don't have evidence. Supposedly the head of special ed is looking into the tapes 3 months later, but either way, no one has been updated on where that investigation, stands. They have not told us anything that's happening. I was told straight up that the driver would not be removed from the route unless there was like hardcore evidence and proof. 2 weeks later, they gave me and the other mother a phone call stating that out of the blue, all of a sudden, there's gonna be a new driver. When I asked why, when they were very adamant that that would never happen, they couldn't even answer. They just stumbled over their words. So I'd also like to know why those concerns are not addressed more appropriately and taken more seriously. Why are paraprofessionals not invited to the IEP meetings? I can't stress this enough. It is illegal. I've talked to many lawyers on this matter. There's nobody on that IEP team that knows that student better than the paraprofessional that is working with them one-on-one at all points of the day. To not let them be included is it's just disrespectful. It's an insult to them. They feel like they don't matter. They feel like their input is not valued. They can always tell you, at the meetings, if you want to hear from the para, the case manager talks to the para the day before the meeting, and the case manager will present whatever the para has, brought forward. My son's been in special ed now with the district for 3 years. I've never once seen that happen. Never once do I hear anything from the para. The para deserves to be in that meeting because that's, again, the one person that knows your child the best. They know what's happening as far as their education, how it's going in the regular ed classroom, how it's going in their special services such as like speech, OT, PT, that type of thing. The next one, why is Medicaid being billed for the student services such as speech and language, OT, PT, if they're to have a free and public education under FAPE? The next one, why is the last audit conducted on special ed and SAU 54 not publicly posted anywhere? I would love if somebody could please get back to me. I'll be following up with this with an email either tonight or tomorrow. I'd love for someone to tell me where I could find that audit, as it's public information. The next one, why do we have special ed students losing their services, left and right services that they very much still need to have to be successful in the learning environment? I've had a lot of parents come to me recently saying that their child's, they're pulling their services. I've been told by some parents that the district isn't honoring diagnosis, like an autism diagnosis from medical professionals. They're saying that they're not going to agree with that diagnosis. There's a lot of issues, but I really hope that you can hear us because we're going to keep coming back. We're going to keep sending emails. We're going to keep fighting these issues because our kids deserve way, way better. And you people have the power to be the voice and reason of change. That's why you took, that's why you were placed in these seats. You're placed in the seats by the parents, the staff, the community. You do not work for superintendent or QC, you work for all of us. And so I really hope that you're gonna listen to what I said, and I'm also gonna follow up with an email with everything that I touched base on, but I'd really like these issues to be looked into.
Thank you.
Did you state her name?
Yeah.
She did. Okay, thank you.
Please state your name and limit your comments to 5 minutes.
There's a time limit? There is?
Okay.
My name's Tim Wells. I have a grandchild in the school system. She's special ed. Along with what Ms. Mahoney said, I can't elaborate enough what she's been saying. She's touched on everything I want to touch on as far as that goes. Going back to last week, I was going to speak last week. I decided to listen. I'm glad I did because it enlightened me a lot. What I found out in the last week is pretty disturbing. I'm not going to get into it today. We need a full board meeting for this one. I will say that the chair kind of disgusted me when Ms. Mahoney spoke last week, and she's talking about possible child abuse, a teacher hitting a child. Can you wrap it up? Your 5 minutes is up. It's a little disgusting. That's a crime. I'm not very comfortable with what's going on here. Yeah, I'm a grandparent, but grandparents have rights too. So you're going to see a lot more of me. See, am I bothering you? Because you get this look a lot, and that's what bothers me. Every time somebody tries to do something right, you're rolling your eyes, you're fidgeting. It's like you really... I've gone around from school district to school district to school district, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is by far, right now, except for one, the worst when it comes to special ed. How strict are you on your fraternization policy? Are we strict? Nobody wants to speak up? Last week there was a hockey gathering, we'll call it. I don't know if it was a practice or a game. Some things were said. We're going to address that at the full board meeting as well. Okay? As far as that goes, you did take an oath, right, to serve with honor and integrity? Can we start seeing it? Can we get these people involved that are supposed to be involved? Can we do right by these children? There's 2 kids, like she said, on a school bus being abused by a bus driver. They are entitled to alternate transportation. If this bus company doesn't want to view those tapes in a reasonable amount of time, make other recommendations, make other accommodations. She's right, you have the authority to change this. I see 2 people so far, in the few times that I've been here, that are really trying. Everybody else seems bothered by it, pretty much everybody. And the other thing that really disturbs me is almost a year ago, I asked for a right to know on $17 million then of COVID relief money. Where is it? It's been a year almost. So I'm going to the Department of Education for that one because I'm understanding it's near $70 million. The other answer we're looking for is, did you, Mr. Pappas, say business administrator? I wasn't aware you had one. Do we have a name? So how do we get budgets approved? And how do we come up with $1.8 million in a savings account that you supposedly didn't know about? Is that a slush fund that somebody found by accident? See, this all raises eyebrows. It's unprofessional. When I spoke to the superintendent's office a year ago and asked about this, and they were giving me such a hard time about a $17 million right to know, I made a statement, I'm gonna make it again. You're elected, he works for you. You're elected, you can be replaced by people who wanna do it. People like Ms. Mahoney, who's here to make a difference, who really cares, isn't gonna do things that I'm seeing here. Some of you should be disgusted with yourselves. That's it for tonight, thank you for your time.
Thank you. If you can please state your name and limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Oh, that'll be easy. I moved here a year and a half ago. My name is Cindy Peters Hoffman. I have a child who attends Spalding, and I have another child who just started at Will and Malin. Now, my child at Spalding is on an IEP. I should not have to repeatedly go over everyone's head on a daily basis to find out why communications are constantly being dropped on my son, who is on medical leave for a very extensive surgery. Sorry, I'm hitting this. I get excited because this just happened a few days ago. The school is completely aware, but yet I'm still getting truancy letters to the home on a daily basis. And I know how this district loves to call truancy. I've heard, I've spoken to all the parents. I'm not dumb. I come from Massachusetts. I come from where we have a much stronger school system in an IEP district who fight for their children. And as far as your athletic budget concerns, how about some fundraising for your children to get them the safety things that they need? And I also think this district highly needs to be aware that I have witnessed other students, IEP or not, that I know of, who come from mixed families who are being treated with hate crimes. And I think someone needs to investigate that further as well. So I'm going to keep coming to these meetings until we figure out how we can correct all of these problems in our school district. Because there seems to be quite a lot. Because when I first moved here, I checked the report card. Did you know that there's one online I can look at to see how your performance is throughout the years? Well, online it says you guys are great. I'm not finding that here. Had I known that, I would have bought a house in a different town in this state, because I'm done. I'm literally making myself sick with stress and ending up in the hospital because of this situation with my son. So, communication, when it comes to these people, need to be better. I'm tired of, on a daily basis, going over everyone's head. But if that's what I gotta continue to do, so be it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to address the committee? Please state your name and limit your comment to 5 minutes.
Sure. My name is Perry Brown, P-E-R-R-Y Brown. Excuse me, I do have a little list. I was told I'd be able to talk again. But I'm talking, and for good reasons. I'm just going to fast forward. I wasn't planning on talking, but it's coming in, a few pointers automatically, so I'm just going to go with the flow. 3 weeks ago, I was in an IEP meeting with my son. My son's in School Street. 90% of the staff quit, transfer, took other options, offers. It's maybe 2 original staffs that's there. So this was the first IEP of this year with the new staff. Ms. Gratian, Elizabeth Gratian, I believe her name is. Started off as it wasn't on our calendar. They needed permission for the guidance to run the meeting. With that being said, Ms. Gratian didn't give them permission to run it without her being there, so we ended up doing it on Zoom. Ms. Gratian was on a laptop, on a table, as we proceeded with the IEP. couple times, I don't know, 5 years, 4 years now. As parents, we all want to hear that our kids are doing good. We all want to hear that. We all want to hear our kids are doing good. And the fact of the matter is, me and my wife, we fell into that, just listening and believing, but it does not add up. And what I mean by that is, we started actually going over the IEP. My son's in the 4th grade, going into the 5th grade. He's on the 1st grade reading level. Okay? I'm gonna start there. I asked him, 1st grade level, what do you mean? 4th, he's going to 5th grade. Let me back up a second. For 3 years, his goal been the same. How about that? So my question is, how did my son post the progress and he's still 1st grade? Shouldn't we be getting him to the 5th grade? They did not like the introduction Miss Elizabeth, Miss Gracia made, telling them how to present, how to run the meeting. The disrespect that I got in that meeting. You know, I heard the gentleman say it about eyes rolling and huffing and puffing. Like when I called her a few days ago to actually talk to her one-on-one, because she couldn't see the way the laptop was positioned, it was on me and the homeroom teacher. The principal and so rolling their eyes, huffing and puffing, did not like the procedure, the proper procedure, the way it should be done. So what I'm getting at is, it doesn't even matter, it seemed like, about the education. Kids are going to another, 5th grade's crunch time. That's crunch time. Like I told him, this is crunch time. My son's in the 4th grade going to 5th grade. What do you mean, first grade level? Okay, so the goal, the plan's what? And then the terms is to keep him at his level. Oh, we're going to keep him at it. We're going to give him work to his level. Excuse me? No, we need to bring him to his level where he needs to be. It's definitely, it's absolutely a disgrace. IEP, and some of the things, even hearing what one of the ladies said, I don't even know a title right now, she suggested, oh, if he gets a little antsy or it's a little too much, he can go for a walk, or he can, what? There's no time to be going out of class. Are you kidding me? That's your recommendation for my son? Why he has to sit there and wait 5 minutes because of a 13th para, because I heard that. You know, I heard that. He gets 100% support was said in the meeting, which is not true. All these kids, a lot of kids are all pushed into a pot. They're all mushed into one pot. Some kids need a lot more attention than other kids. So, it's like they want the money, but they can't perform the work. That's what I'm saying. You know, they're short on apparel here, and once again, it's even something online where they recruiting and is hiring now for them. You got 14 kids, one apparel, how they possibly are helping them kids? There's no way possible. And with the budget money, it is a big one. That should be being used more, a lot more for the kids. That's why they get the grants. That's why all this is happening. Don't really know too much about the COVID policy. I'm a little new with this, what's going on. Like I said, I always believe because I heard what I want to hear, so I never did the homework, me and my wife. Whereas though we are now, you best believe we're on the ball. This needs to stop. Don't want to have to get the attorney involved, but my son's life is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to address the committee? There being none, I'll close public comment. Item 7 is other. Do we have any other, Mr. Downs?
So since it's come up now at 2 different meetings, can you explain meetings? Are paras at the meetings? Are they not at the meetings? Are they invited to the meetings? Where does that, what are the grounds there?
I'm not the director of special ed, but the meetings that I've been in, I typically do not see paraprofessionals in them.
Can we make sure they're at the meetings?
I can bring that back.
Okay. Can you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downs. Mr. Pappas?
I've been a public school teacher for 24 years, and I've been in hundreds of IEP meetings, and I've never had a paraprofessional at any of them. And I'm not saying that that's a justification,
Okay,
but
so,
I'm just saying that that's my experience.
so I disagree. If a parent, if a student has a para, and that para is with that student 90% of the day, that para should be in the meeting. I don't care what we've been doing for the
Absolutely.
30
Makes
days.
sense.
So,
Why don't the rest of you get it?
Okay, Mrs. Stokes?
So, again, I'm a school board member sitting here, but I do have a child in the district with a disability. And I've always been able to invite my parent to the meeting, and how I was told is it's up to the para if they feel comfortable or not. So some paras have come to my meeting, because again, your para works with that child all day long, and they have a lot of valuable information. If the para did not feel comfortable because of they just didn't feel comfortable, then I didn't push the issue. But as a parent in this district, I did have paras come to my meetings. They were always invited. So I just want to make sure that's clear, because I mean, I haven't been to hundreds, but I'm a trained advocate, so it's always allowed to be asked. I just have a question, because we have, I believe it was 4 parents that came up and spoke, and it's difficult. I know we're not allowed to talk to them at the podium, and it's difficult to get all that information down. So if somebody were to come and speak here, and we just, again, I mean, my chicken scratch is just very small, would the suggestion be that if they have concerns, who would they contact before? So I get that they're coming here, but, I mean, it's difficult for us, you know what I mean, like the bus issues and all that, so I guess there's gonna be questions from the board. But who would a parent contact to go up that chain of command to that, because we can't discuss kids at a public meeting, that wouldn't be appropriate, there's laws to that.
I would think they would meet with Kyle, myself, or the director of student services, 3 of us.
All 3 of you together?
I don't know, I think it would depend on the request. I mean, it potentially could be. Or maybe they might request just to meet with me, or they might just request to meet with Sarah.
So it's only because in all the 10 years, or 12 years, because we've kind of been on the board, it's a long time, we've never had that many parents come up and speak. So I think it's just something that we, as a board, again, we can't discuss things like that in public because it has to do with students, so we're not allowed to. But, I mean, it sounds like we need to address this, so.
There's more parents that are
So,
under retaliation by the district.
Mr. Jones?
back on the paras. So I know that the assistant principal, it's mandatory, they're in the meetings because they run the special education in the elementary schools. Why aren't we making it mandatory for paras to attend those as well, since they're with those students? I don't know if there are policies, or why are we giving them an option? We're not giving the assistant principal an option, why are we giving the paras an option?
Because there's laws.
Well, so can you come back with what the law is on that next meeting, so we have a better understanding?
So the question is there a law that mandates paraprofessionals
Having
to
the
attend
option.
meetings?
To have an
Like a
option.
law in the state of New Hampshire?
Yeah,
To not, yeah.
because then if they, at least so we have something to back when we have upset parents.
So you're stating if there is or is not a law?
Yeah, I'm curious, if there really is a law where it's their option, then that's something that we'll have to have them have to go to the DOE and argue with them.
Mr. Pappas?
First, I do want to say I'm sympathetic for sure, and I also had a child with an IEP for 10 years, so I've been in the trenches myself. So, but I think in this situation, it would make sense to have Ms. Reinhardt here at our next meeting, who might be able to answer those questions, because I think that would be the appropriate person to answer them.
Mrs. Stokes?
I think the issue is, a parent can come up to the podium and talk about their child, they have that right.
Sure.
And I thank people for coming up and speaking, because we're not aware of issues if we don't know what's going on. I don't know that a public place is that, because we can't address those issues with a child because we can't ask clarifying questions. So that's kind of why I asked about like the.
To answer his question.
Oh, all right, I thought we were addressing that, so yeah, all right. Take that back?
Mr. Dunn?
So these meetings are recorded. Can we have Ms. Reinhardt review this meeting, have answers on everything that got brought up for the board at the next meeting? Review the video.
Yeah, she can certainly review the video, and I think what Karen is saying is she can address topics, but she
Yeah.
can't address specific
No, of course
situations
not.
with
Of course not.
specific
Yes.
students.
Of course.
I'll invite her to come to the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
But just for clarity, there is a chain of command. So if somebody is unhappy, I know somebody mentioned a principal or somebody mentioned a team. So if they had an issue with their IEP team, the person that they would go to would be the director of student services first. And then if they weren't happy with that, you as the assistant superintendent or Kyle or PJ, and then it would be the school board as the last resort.
Would it be the principal?
If there's,
The principal?
well, if there's an IEP meeting, I think it would be the director of student services, because the principal has no concern over an IEP meeting.
Right.
Correct, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I was
Right.
told.
Principal has never been in my EP meeting, or the assistant
So
principal.
it's an LEA, right, it's an LEA.
A lot of the principals are the LEAs.
Correct, but they don't have to be,
No.
right. So I guess that's the question is, maybe we
Yes.
get clarification
If
on the
a
hierarchy.
parent was upset, they can come to myself and they can come to Sarah Reinhardt, probably first. And then I would think they would go to Kyle, and then they would go to the board.
Well, and I think that's what I'm making sure for clarification, because if they're coming here, clearly there's some disconnect on what that level is. So I just want to make sure,
Yeah.
so,
Any parent that calls me,
Sarah
I meet with them, I
Reinhardt.
call them back, certainly.
okay.
So can we circle back to Mr. Pathas's request? Do we want Ms. Reinhardt here next month?
Yep,
Oh, yeah, like I said, I want her to review the video and have some answers for some of the questions that obviously that would have arisen.
Ms. Hebert, can you please reach out to Ms. Reinhardt and ask her to be here next month? All right, anything else under other? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.